At American University, we don't just hope for change, we create it. We don't just dream of a better world, we make it a reality. With a graduate degree from AU, you'll access expert faculty and connections throughout DC to develop skills and experience to turn your passion into purpose. And that purpose can make all the difference in your career. Discover the difference a degree makes at american.edu/grad school.
You are listening to New Theory Radio. Theory Radio.
Welcome to another edition of New Theory Radio here, streaming live actually today on CFREradio.ca, as well as this is available on iTunes each and every Friday. I am your host, Nav Nanwa, and I'm very excited to welcome two esteemed guests to help me theorize on some hot topic issues. They just actually put out an amazing album just a few weeks ago called LOFI GLORY, and they finally have graced us here at the CFRE studios. My homies Noyz and Dusty Loops. What's going on, peeps?
Yo, what up now? Thanks for having us, man.
Anytime. Really appreciate it. Dusty, how you doing, man? Just sipping your vitamin water.
I came up, yeah.
He's trying to open it. He finally took a sip.
No,
but
thanks for having us, man.
No, I appreciate it. This is long overdue. And again, you know, the whole premise here at New Theory Radio is really around theorizing on all things pop culture, current affairs, and everyday life. So we typically talk about 3 topics on each episode. And, you know, what I really wanted to do was get both of your opinions on a lot of things that are currently going on in the world, as well as touch on some things that maybe influenced you when it came to the completion of your most latest album, LOFI GLORY. I think it's only fair because I know when we started, when you guys actually entered the studio, we were talking about this earlier. It's definitely a hot topic issue. And it's a debate that's been going on for the last couple of weeks, but in hindsight, I'd say been going on for the last few years. And that's really around separating the art from the individual. And a lot of this stems from what we've seen come out when it comes to Michael Jackson, the ongoing saga of R. Kelly, most recently some of the stuff that's been affecting people like Johnny Depp, even if you want to go all the way back to the Weinstein stuff that really pivoted the Me Too movement. There's a lot of people right now that are feeling conflicted, especially those that were fans of individuals like Michael Jackson and R. Kelly, that are finding it hard to match what the art that they've produced with the actual person themselves and some of the horrific acts that they've been told that they've done in their lives. And you know, it's no secret with the popularity of such documentaries this year, like Surviving R. Kelly as well as Leaving Neverland. This debate is definitely continuing on, and I feel everyone has a different opinion when it comes to how you should be consuming Michael Jackson's music or how you should be consuming R. Kelly's music. And I want to open it up and kind of get both of your opinions on this. And Noyz, maybe we'll begin with you, because I know that, you know, you're someone that really appreciates good music. And this is also an example that I feel is definitely relevant in sort of the wrestling world as well, which we can touch on later.
Too, yeah.
But overall, what's your thoughts, man, especially with what's been going on with Michael Jackson, R. Kelly? What's your theory on separating the art from the individual?
Man, I definitely think it's tricky to separate the two. Mm-hmm. And just because I was thinking about this earlier today, especially around the wrestling piece, like the immediate example that popped into my mind was Chris Benoit.
Yeah, always.
Like Chris Benoit was...
That was my point.
Yeah, for those that don't know, like Chris Benoit was,
the man.
I think a lot of people would say one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. But obviously killed his son, killed his wife. So is there still possible to appreciate his matches without thinking about the acts that he did? And it's difficult, to be honest. Like, I feel like now that there's been, you know, over 10 years, there is that emotional distance between the man and, like, sometimes I'll be watching old events and his match will pop up and I totally forgot he was on the card. And, like, I'll sit and I'll watch it and I can make that separation, but it's not a full separation because, like, he might take a really hard bump and he'll land on his head. And it's like, man, what if that contributed to, like, his CTE, which, you know, eventually snowballed and, you know, played a factor into his death or his suicide and like the facts leading up to that. So I think it is definitely very difficult to make that separation or to make that distinction between art and artists. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there is a cut and dry answer for me, at least. I know, like, there's a lot, especially just kind of staying on with the wrestling world. Like, a lot of people are, like, they have problematic histories, right?
Yeah.
Even someone like Stone Cold. Someone like Stone Cold is beloved. He's revered, but he has a history of domestic violence. But that's not necessarily something that's brought up.
Even, like, I think another example is, like, the Jimmy Snuka stories. That we heard about him supposedly killing one of his ex-girlfriends and then it being a total cover-up. And then I believe, I guess, the last year of his life was really when it came into fruition, and I think he ended up serving jail time because they found out he was guilty. But like it's insane how we glorify, no pun intended, these individuals just when it comes to the specific worlds that they live in. But then when you actually see stuff that they're doing in their real lives, how it does make you conflicted from a fan standpoint about how you should feel about enjoying their work. And
I feel like it kind of ties into just social media that we have now. For a lot of people say, social media is just a highlight reel. That's an image that someone's crafted to present to you. And I feel like with art, with wrestling, with whatever medium that someone is presenting, that's only like a snapshot of the actual person that we get to see.
Yeah.
So with an artist like Michael or R. Kelly, like we only see that one snapshot. And because it's so attached to childhood or growing up and things like that, we feel like we know the person or we feel like we're connected to them, but there's 95% of their life that's lived outside of that, and that's what we don't see. And I think that's where people kind of starts to get muddy because it's hard to make that separation between the emotional attachment you have versus who this person actually is when the camera's off.
So how much blame do we actually put, besides these individuals, how much blame do we put on the enablers around them and the industry which allows this?
Oh, I think there's not enough blame going around to those guys.
And I think it makes, like, everyone hides usually when all these kind of things pop up, and then it continues right back again. I mean, this is just another person, I'm sure you're going to have something very similar to this in any of these situations, like in the next coming years. You know what I mean? So
it's just scary how, like, for example, with Michael and the little kids, and then R. Kelly, obviously with his relationship with Aaliyah, how in that almost in the mid 80s to mid 90s, or even mid 80s to even now, we've all been kind of foolish when it came to a lot of the signs that we saw that these things were happening. We just turned a blind eye and just assumed, okay, it's not my business, I'm just going to continue to enjoy the music, when the proof was always there. Like, that's the one thing I've really taken back from a lot of these documentaries is, I look at these clips of Michael having a little kid with him everywhere he goes. Nowadays, I think if that was to happen, people would be like, oh, what's up with that guy, or what's up with that girl, and why is he doing this?
Yeah, but look at the people that they're surrounded around. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many of them, they're seeing that stuff and nothing's happening. And at the end of the day, like, we don't know these people as much as you love whoever, you know what I mean? Like Jay, Beyonce, whatever. We don't know these people. We don't know how they are in their personal lives. We don't know the extent of their relationships with the people around them. So I get it, to a certain degree. I mean, it's up to you. If you see something that doesn't, like, sit well with your spirit, you should just not support it. And it can be an individual or a whole organization. But I feel like it's a much convoluted of a discussion than just blaming on one person and saying, you know what, I don't mess with this guy, that's it. I will not support his art. Or, I think it's different from case to case. R. Kelly's case is completely different because he's doing it blatantly and there's evidence to prove it.
Yeah, I think the best point that was made in the R. Kelly doc was when someone was like, he doesn't know how to read or write. Who is booking these flights? Who is doing this for him? Because he's not doing it himself, right? So there's definitely a circle of enablers. And even now, people are still bailing him out, paying his child support. So
that's crazy. Like, he actually has like a friend of a friend, and it's also a female, too, that's bailed him out a couple times, I think the last time.
By the way, you can't dance around that document, the marriage certificate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that doesn't mean anything, then, hey man, do your thing. Like, it's not my life. I'm only as an audience, I can choose to not support him or anyone associated with him, and I'll just move on. But I mean, there's no what other responsibilities on us?
So outside of putting judgment on the person, will you guys continue to listen to the music?
If in R. Kelly's case, because there's a video evidence, I've just not cared for his music since probably The Blueprint came out. I don't care for it. It didn't connect with me in any other way. Like who else? Like what else?
You never popped off when Ignition used to come
Nah,
out?
man. I thought it was whack. It's just
the most catchy song ever.
It's personally just not for me, so
Yeah.
I'm not indulging in it. Michael's different because almost every kid is born into that music just by their parents playing that. So it's not just a Michael aspect. A lot of our stuff is just tied to memories of sounds and smells and what we've seen as a kid. So it's wired in you young. And it's obviously as you get older and you see things, you can make sound decisions for yourself as to whether you want to support that person or not. But I don't know. I don't think it's as black and white as people are making it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But certain artists that you see now, you see how they're moving. The best thing to do is just not support them. And I'm not saying go out and make 50 tweets about it and post about it. Just how you conduct yourself and move around. Just don't support that person.
Mm-hmm.
I've never supported R. Kelly.
Yeah.
No,
I'll be honest. Growing up, being a fan of Space Jam, I Believe I Can Fly. I remember hearing it at prominent events. Ignition was always that one song, especially during my MBA, that people would always pop off on because of just how catchy the lyrics are. And I have one of my best friends. I had a conversation with him, no joke, and he told me straight up. He's like, "What am I going to play at my wedding in the summer?" Because Michael's
a million other songs.
bro,
come on.
But he's also scared about Michael too.
Play some John Legend. Play some Usher. Play some Sam Cooke. Find someone else, man.
And like I said, stop putting all this stock into these celebrities, man.
Yeah.
You don't know them. And, stop acting like, oh, I never saw this coming. Why don't you get more in tune with your surrounding and see who you can actually help out?
Yeah.
Because there are these things happening around us.
Yeah, and that's a great point. It kind of ties into the way we worship celebrity, right? We put people, like you're saying, we put people on this pedestal because of a certain talent they have or a skill that they have. But like you're saying, Dusty, we don't know the person behind that. We only see that person. In the case of a wrestler, we see them 2 hours a week. Or in the case of an artist, we see them... we have that album, or we see them once every couple of years at a show.
Yeah.
That's the only interaction we have with them.
Isn't it crazy how I bet you there's people that know so much about this R. Kelly case, but they're completely oblivious to someone around them that has something like that happen to them. Maybe they've expressed it in some way and they've just kind of overlooked it. Mm-hmm. But they know all the facts for this one thing. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. I just feel like just remove yourself, man. It's entertainment. They're in the entertainment business. So at the end of the day, content sells. So even the person collecting the story from both sides. I mean, you saw the whole Gale thing too, right? Mm-hmm. Wasn't it initially supposed to come out Wednesday?
Yeah.
And then it got pushed to Thursday. And then someone's probably like, yo, Friday is International Women's Day. We have to drop this Friday,
literally,
right?
Yeah, it was good timing on that end.
Big up to Gale. She killed it. But at the end of the day, that was still a decision, I guess, by the station that, listen, we can capitalize more off viewership on Friday. Why not push it? Which is a good win for everyone. Yeah. But it's still coming back to the content because now everybody's looking for that. Mm-hmm. That's probably the most traffic the CBS website has had. That's the first time I've been on a CBS website. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because that's been the criticism of HBO from the Jackson family, was that they only supported that documentary because the Jackson fans, because they were like, oh, this is going to get a lot of eyes, and Michael and anything to do with this child abuse case always gets them a lot of views, and it's always something that will allow them to hit those ratings, which ultimately leads to ad revenue. But that's been the criticism from the Jackson family as to why HBO ran that doc.
There's 2 points to that. One, HBO doesn't owe the Jackson family anything. So if they want to support a documentary that's coming up about someone that they worked with in the past and they truly believe it, and want to help the cause, they can run it. But 2, I saw this hilarious point online that after Game of Thrones, they don't have anything coming out.
I know, nothing.
So this is literally the best thing happening to them right now.
Actually, so Noyz, I wanted to ask you, because for me, being a wrestling fan, wrestling was always the most logical example that I'd always apply to this situation. Mm-hmm. How is it now when you watch like when you are watching old school wrestling, 'cause I know you're a big old school wrestling fan, when you are seeing like a Superfly Jimmy Snuka or even a Chris Benoit pop up, do you forward or do you take it in? Like what's your, because for me myself, I was also a big Chris Benoit fan. It doesn't also help that West Side Gun promotes Chris Benoit every now and then. I'm a big West Side.
But see, that's another angle, right? As why
that's like the shock value angle, though.
I know, but again, I like the music. I end up kind of like indirectly supporting that too. And I don't know much about wrestling and stuff. I found out through you guys about the whole Chris Benoit thing. But at the end of the day, like we're still supporting.
Don't tell me you're going around bigging up Chris Benoit. Like,
yeah, I thought it was it was a sick joke, but big up.
But it's the shock value factor of it. But going back to my question, like, are you flipping the channel? Are you forwarding? Like, for example, Superstars was just on the network. And
sorry, can I just add one more to your point?
Yeah.
So the only thing to that, like, I want you to answer this too, is what about artists who have done stuff like Chris Benoit, but their art is not reflective of anything that they've done. Whereas R. Kelly's case, there's songs after songs, which are about his victims. Yeah. Well, he wrote a song for Michael, which is about one of the girls.
You're not alone.
That's nasty.
That's a really terrible intersection.
So I'm saying, like, in wrestling, from the wrestling standpoint, it's not like you guys saw any displays of that behavior. It just kind of happened. Did it? Is that?
Yeah, in some way. Well, I don't know. Like, so Chris Benoit, if we're going to use him as an example, he always had a pretty aggressive wrestling style.
Yeah, there were stories of not necessarily domestic abuse, but a lot of physicality within his relationship with his wife that he ended up killing at the end. So there was kind of like hints here and there, and especially leading up to his death, like the last maybe year or so leading up to it, like people that were close to him could tell that his mental health was going, like something was up.
Because it was like a mix of CTE, then plus he was best friends with Eddie Guerrero, and Eddie Guerrero passed away, and people were sensing like, man, this guy's not all the way right.
And how are you guys getting this information? Like through the wrestling community, or this was actually like on
or
something?
Like I would say a lot of it actually came out now
afterwards. Yeah,
like I remember Chris Jericho did an interview with his sister-in-law
and with Chavo
and with Chavo Guerrero Jr., who said, and even when the news came out, there was all this evidence around text that he sent to certain people telling them where like the dogs were located, so that when they did find the bodies, they could release the dogs. Like weird stuff like that just didn't add up. And then I think his brain went to CTE testing too.
Yeah. To the Nowinski Legacy Fund or whatever.
Christopher Nowinski, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So to just kind of wrap this up, and then we'll talk about the 3 songs we're gonna play. I know it's not a great segue.
It's a big topic, bro. It's I'm sorry, man. When I was reading the points, like it's not as simple as, I'm seeing people like, playing that game online. Like, I'm not listening to Michael, and if you listen to Michael, unfollow me and stuff. Like, grow up. It doesn't work like that. Because, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it's not that black and white. And
no pun intended.
He was waiting for that. This
guy gets the big bucks.
This is what I do.
Yeah.
No, at least for me, because I was a big Michael fan growing up. Even with like R. Kelly, like I Believe I Can Fly was a huge part of my childhood. Man. So I feel like in the immediacy when stuff like this comes out, I guess my immediate reaction is to kind of
just watch,
just separate from it a little bit, right? Like I'm not the type of guy that will be like, nah, screw all you guys, I'm gonna go bump Thriller right now. Yeah. Or I'm not the other person that's just like, I don't want anybody. If you listen to Michael, I'm not messing with you. I'm not in either of those extremes. I feel.
Yeah.
I need to take a step back.
Yo, Michael, for me personally, like it's not just Michael. That every song that Michael has put out, that's I'm studying Quincy. I'm studying the mixing, the whole production aspect of it. So it's not just one artist. And also, like I was saying, you can take whatever you want from it and whatever works for you, apply it, and just move on. There's no need to make these, draw these lines in the sand and stuff. Because, I mean, look at the Emmett Till case, right? For decades, we've been living with one narrative, and even at that narrative, if that was true, he didn't have to die for that. And now that the lady's about to die, or no, she passed away, she comes out and says that this thing was a lie. You know how much transpired from that one single lie. People took it upon themselves to hurt other people and murder other people and stuff throughout decades. And now we're finding out it's this. So I'm just saying, with a lot of these cases, man, we don't know. And if you choose to not, support this person, just do it yourself and just keep moving, man. Like, I don't smoke. I don't go around telling people stop fucking smoking.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the first F-bomb, too.
It's okay.
But yeah, man, like, I don't go around telling people don't do this, don't do that. So just, if you don't want to listen to it, I get it. It's the hype right now. It's the hot topic. Don't do it. Just go ahead. People did the same thing to Chris Brown. Like, he's right where he was before.
Yeah.
He may be even bigger now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
just a couple of thoughts. Like, I remember I was at a bar on Friday that actually had a live band. Actually, first the DJ,
I saw that.
The DJ played a Michael Jackson song, and I was a little drunk, and I was like, "Is this allowed?" And then the second time the band played a song, and I actually noticed the dance floor clear out. There's like one couple that was dancing, but for me, that was.
And
quite
now, what did
eye-opening.
you do? I got to call you out. You created content and said, "What am
Of
I
course.
supposed to do here,
Of
guys?"
course. I need
I
to.
saw that. I was like, "Oh my god!"
I was a little, I was feeling the juice, and I had to see what people were saying because the song they were playing is a song I actually like quite a lot, and I didn't know how to feel about it. The other thing that gets me thinking about these two situations, and again, I don't want to think like this, but it kind of makes me wonder in the future, who else is going to be on this cancellation spree and going to be booked for stuff that they've done. And it's kind of scary when you think about some of the people that are your heroes or people you look up to. Like, I don't know what I'd do if I heard that Jay-Z was, running, some type of slave trade underneath,
I mean, he stabbed his brother or shot his brother.
Yeah, he stabbed.
Does that not count?
But I'm also not for this whole cancel thing too, man. That's just, again, just the online hype thing. It's cool to do it. It's very rare when it works in our favor, and it's amazing. The fact that if you choose to do something racist out in the public, we'll collect your information and send it to your employer, and you will get fired. So that's dope. But in other sense, like, man, I don't think people are like that disposable. That's what I'm getting from a lot of this Twitter stuff. That we're just gonna cancel this person. That's it. Like, what about people that actually go and do their time? Or what about people that want to change? If someone will probably, if they're that in tune with themselves and they can say that, okay, maybe in a couple of years, if I keep doing this, I'm going to do some sick shit and end up like, one of these guys. What if I need help right now?
Yeah.
Don't you think they'll still get crucified for coming out and getting help?
Yeah. And
that's the part that really sucks, because there's people that want to come out. Like, I know a lot of people feel a different way about the Liam Neeson
I was just
thing.
about to say,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, I'm not a fan of the guy. I don't care. He makes whatever movies. But he came out and said something just as a thought that he had. He never acted on it, whatever. And he's grown since.
We talked about it a few weeks ago on here.
Yeah. So, I mean, carry on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, he came forward and said, I did this years ago, and that was a turning point. So now if we're bringing up, like, old tweets from a decade ago from people and saying they're canceled because they said this, it doesn't give anybody a chance to change and, make a positive turn in their lives. We're kind of holding them accountable to this one thing. And I can't remember who said it. It was just like, if we did that, then we would still be looking at Malcolm X as, like, Chicago Red, right? We wouldn't have given them opportunity to transform himself.
You can't how do you really like quantify growth? Like, a person grows, man. Some takes them a decade, some takes them a year. You don't know. You're all of a sudden, we want people to be like, pitch perfect with everything, but you're not allowed to make any mistakes or grow. Just be grown already, and it doesn't work like that.
I think just on that, I remember there was a part in the Gayle King R. Kelly interview where R. Kelly says he wants help, and I noticed
that was a show.
I know. Well, and that's the thing. I noticed a lot of people that were taking that with a grain of salt, and were just saying, he's in a situation where he needs to say that. Just to save face.
Well, the thing with him, actually, he's never actually like. Although he's openly briefly spoken about his assault.
Yeah,
that he was assaulted.
Yeah, he was actually assaulted when he was younger too. Yeah,
I don't think he's fully come to terms with that.
Yeah,
because that same assault also happened with his brother. It went completely different. Whereas his brother described it as, it ruined my life, and I don't know, he's like late 40s, 50s. It's completely ruined my life. But in Robert's case, he enjoyed it, so it completely took him in a different direction. And even he said he never been to therapy either, right? Yeah. So. I don't know, man. Just a lot of like unresolved baggage.
Yeah, and that's what's being aired, right? Unfortunately,
And I feel like, we just need to have conversations, man. Like, stop going like online and turning everything into like. I know the hype you guys get and the high you get of just like 10 people liking your stuff.
You talking about me and Noyz or what?
I'm talking about in general. I already called you out, but I mean, like, just talk to people and have conversations, man. And even if, because you might have some thoughts too that you sometimes it's better to just let them out. And let your friends check you, or you find a solution in there and move on rather than holding that in. And you never know when that shit will transpire.
Yeah, no,
that's
totally.
why this whole like even everything now being tied into mental health. Like it really like I think about this a lot. Like, do I really know myself? Like what I don't know what I'm capable of doing like 10 years from now. When you hear these kind of stories, like it's really hard for me to believe that someone can wake up and just like kill their entire family. Right. But then the thought of like, what's stopping someone in my household from doing that to me tonight or tomorrow? You know what I mean? Like just simple stuff. So like, I don't know, man. Like,
yeah. And you honestly don't know because again, who could predict a Chris Benoit or even a situation like a Michael Jackson? And even with Michael Jackson, there is a lot of people that are not canceling him because they also realize how bad his upbringing was and just how that may have contributed to what he did if he did it.
It's still not an excuse, but I'm saying there's things in there in Michael's life that I just wouldn't do. And I don't care for that stuff, me, personally. Like the way the stuff, like there is absolutely no reason for Mike to be hanging with kids. He's the biggest guy in the world. He could be with Jordan, Tyson, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it was just kind of weird. But we also can't prove anything, what did or didn't happen. So
I think that was a sly way you flipped that Biggie line right there.
Did I? Oh, yeah.
Tyson, Jordan, Jackson.
Pick one.
I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about a favorite group amongst all three of us. If you're a true hip hop head, you do appreciate DeLaSoul and just everything that they've done for the industry. This month is the 30th year anniversary of their classic album, 3 Feet High and Rising. But unfortunately, there isn't a lot of hype around this anniversary as I think there could be, mainly because their music is not currently available on streaming platforms, and a lot of that has to do with some of the literature that was written when they produced their albums back in the 80s, as well as a current dispute that they're having with Warner Brothers, who inherited the Tommy Boy Records discography. And it came out recently that all the tracks were actually going to be on streaming services, but the cut that De La was getting was 90% to the record label, 10% to the actual band, meaning that they're probably going to make shit all. So I want to get both of your opinions on this, because as artists, I'm sure you've found yourselves in situations that are unfair, specifically when it comes to the work that you put in towards your art and being able to, put it out through an outlet, but without compromising any revenue or any core beliefs. And just wanted to get your theory on what's been going on with De La, and if you were in their shoes, how would you sort of want to deal with it, or how would you address it when it comes to getting past the system? And I think Noyz will begin with you.
Yeah, I think it kind of reminds me of the Pharoah Monch situation when he dropped Simon Says, and then that Godzilla sample, he wasn't able to clear it.
Yeah,
and then his record ended up getting pulled. I feel like with artists like that, like with De La, with Pharoah, artists from that kind of that style of hip hop, touring is where they can kind of capitalize on it. So even though you can't buy Simon Says anywhere, he can still perform that anywhere in the world and kill it, because people like the notoriety off that song still lives. And I think with with De La Soul, we see it now. Like they're touring with Wu-Tang, they're touring with Public Enemy. They can still kill it off touring. Yeah. So I think even if it doesn't live on streaming, there still is a way for them to capitalize on it, as they have been. Like they've been touring for decades.
You can still get a cease and desist for performing the song.
Even for performing?
Yeah, because that was the thing with when Frank Ocean was performing the Eagles song.
California?
Yeah. When he did his version, and even though it's on a mixtape for free, they sent him a letter to stop performing. And he said, hey, if anything, I'm kind of bridging the gap between the generation right now to you guys, and if anything, they'll go back and check your stuff. And they say no, we don't want it. And also, even though the song is for free, you're using it at all these platforms and gaining. There's some monetary gain from it. So we're not for it. So he kind of stopped.
And that bridge gap is usually is the reason why sampling exists. Because
exactly.
ultimately, it's not people ruining a record. It's to really promote a certain sound from it and being able to reinvent it.
Yeah, I think the other thing about the De La thing I read was, and it's funny to the way Tommy Boy is acting right now, is when they initially signed these guys and they got the list to clear, they didn't clear everything, but they also didn't put much thought into it because they really thought that they were going to tank.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think if that part was communicated to them at that point, because they're also making stuff thinking that everything is fine, but then you have a record label that just doesn't really, they sign you just to get some money, but they don't believe in it. So they're like, hey, you know what? We're not going to clear most of the stuff.
But how much of that is just a factor of the times? Because at the time,
no, but that's bad business.
Well, that's what it was, right? That's
it's bad business. So I would hold Tommy Boy accountable all the way for it, right? But now there's the other discussion separate from this is sampling. I don't understand these old guys and their mentality on these splits and why you can't sample certain artists, which ends up changing stuff. Like, yo, man, you don't own sound. So you really own is just you replaying that certain piece of music.
Yeah.
And I still don't see the harm in sampling anything as long as a person gets, we can come up with simple cuts about it. You know what I mean? But it just seems like for the longest time, early on, a lot of these guys were just really vulturing in on us because they saw the money being made and they said, okay, yo, we need, 50% just for clearance. And then on top of that, there's more charges for if you make this a single, if you shoot a video for it. That's why I don't fuck with Supertramp. Because once that Fab's record blew up, Breathe, they went and asked 100% on everything. So that record basically exists as a freebie out there.
So you make original music. If someone wants to sample your music, your expectation.
Go ahead.
So no, you don't want any payment out of it? Okay.
No. There's payment, but I'm saying this
because that's the issue right now with what they're dealing with, and a lot of it. If I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit here, because Tommy Boy Records was acquired by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is saying, look, we want to put your music out, but unfortunately, because on one DeLaSoul record, it's like 25 samples.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I think with the way that they've come up with their calculation, it's to account for anybody that decides, hey, that's my horn on that record. I want to come after Warner Brothers.
They should take onus for the mistakes they made in the past and say, listen, we'll absorb this. We're in a better place. Why do you think this whole the Drake mixtape is such a great story right now? Because everything that he couldn't clear early on, he's able to go back now at a perfect 10-year mark, clear it, and put it out. You're telling me Tommy Boy's not in a position to do that? DeLaSoul haven't proved themselves? That's what Jay's done over time with all his albums. Before he got to that title mark, he went back and bought everything.
Yeah, he bought.
And also
masters.
In Jay, he's made it clear that in his anytime any artist wants to sample him, it's 100%. It will get cleared. There's no hurdle, no asking, right? And there's a certain amount of fee that kind of goes in. So I'm saying every artist should do that, man. Like, stop turning this into and I feel like a lot of those old artists are kind of done too, but when it gets into their state, like especially like Prince and Marvin Gaye, they're just not up for people sampling them for whatever reason.
So when it comes to the So Far Gone example, that's 10 years removed. Drake's obviously made a shit ton of money since So Far Gone's come out. Where probably for him to clear all those samples is like nothing for him. He's like, whatever, clear it because I just want to put it out to commemorate it. DeLaSoul, I think it's safe to say, has not made Drake money in their career.
They've made money, but we also don't know if they had planned this long term. I'm sure there was a way they could have seen this coming. But again, like if they don't have information, because nobody anticipated the streaming thing. That's why when you go back listen to certain like Ghostface albums, the first ones, certain tracks are missing.
Yeah.
So that means as the stuff is getting moved over, there is a company, I forget, I think in that article, that basically works on backlog and ends up putting all the songs in. So I think they were probably doing the same thing for these guys, but maybe they should have taken a little active role in figuring out why our stuff is not coming out. Because how long has Stream been here?
I'd say about close to 5 years.
Yeah, around that.
Yeah. So 5 years, like they should have started that maybe then and figure out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they could have, able to get like some sort of funding or put their stuff together. But now that it's like a big public spectacle, they're going to ask for more. And somebody is rightfully so. They'll say, I don't want to clear this for whatever weird reason.
It's a sad situation to see them in, because I remember reading somebody tweeted out that, when it comes to Outkast or Tribe, whenever there was a big anniversary, people really embrace their music. Typically, an album that's facing a big anniversary will even re-enter the charts because of streaming and the power it has to do that. But then in De La's case, it's almost they got the worst end of the sword in regards to the fact that because of this issue, like I'm also like the amount of times I've talked to people that, especially people that are, in their early 20s that have been able to discover a Wu-Tang or a Tribe. You mentioned De La, they have no idea. And as a fan, I hold De La in the same regard as Tribe. It's
super sad, man. I grew up on De La. It wasn't even Tribe. But over time, then it became like just an accessibility thing where you're just seeing Tribe a lot more. And I feel like they just got, because of the same stuff, they got celebrated a lot more. And we also don't know what opportunities they lost because for whatever reason, they just couldn't clear it. Mm-hmm. If you already have something like, looming over a case, maybe, how they came out with those dunks? And those dunks were major. Maybe they had something else and they couldn't produce it because of like a pending case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, and we've actually seen, Jay-Z actually said flat out that if De La can't get the right split for these albums, he's going to make sure Tidal doesn't carry them.
True, because then at that point you're just paying Tommy Boy.
Yeah. Like,
I don't know, man. I think they should absorb it. Like, they should absorb it. You guys really ruined those guys, like, early. Your first couple of albums are the album which people hold you to. And it just really, really sucks that they can't enjoy that.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. And I'm only going to play devil's advocate here because I've seen these business deals. And the one thing I'll say about Warner Brothers, and again, I'm not bigging them up, but it's almost as if they've inherited Tommy Boy's mistakes. And is that, from a business standpoint, is that really fair to be in a situation like that? That's what I'm thinking about.
For who?
Is for Warner Brothers, because they bought Tommy Boy, and now through this acquisition, they've inherited these mistakes that Tommy Boy has made. Is it really fair to put them on blast because of this?
But these are big corporations, man. Like, don't they have auditing processes? Like,
well, they do, but if there's no written, like, it's clearly spoken that Tommy Boy had no rhyme or reason to clear a lot of this stuff. So, I mean, there probably wasn't a paper trail or anything like that for them to audit.
I would put it on them, man. It's like if I'm holding an event and I hire you and I tell you, hey, I'll take care of everything, whatever. And then you get to the event and I haven't rented anything, I haven't done any kind of sound check and stuff. Is that not on me?
It is, but there's no written agreement. You can just run and that's it. Like, I only have my word to really.
That's the other thing. We don't know the conversations that happen. So
I think it's a prime example of homeboy business at the end of the day.
yeah.
Like, and I guess that's what hip hop was, right? Like, I think people were just so, like, you think about hip hop in the late 80s, everybody was just on their whole posse grind and all about, collaborating. Like, especially the whole native tongues, like, they were all about collaborating and doing stuff together.
Budgets were crazy.
They were getting thrown money. It's very easy, again, when De La was in their early 20s at that stage, to not have the right people around them where these things were not being accounted for, especially because sampling was so new then. Noyz, you make beats, and a lot of your beats are sampled. Like, does this ever cross your mind when you're putting something together that, someone would come knocking on your door, or do the both of you? Do you guys try to focus on finding the most obscure sample there is, and kind of run with that because you know that the chances of it coming back to you are pretty minimal?
I can't remember who is another artist I was speaking to. He just kind of said, we're not at that level where if we put something out, 99% of the time it's going to fly underneath the radar of a label or someone who's established that's going to come knocking on our door and looking for us. Mm-hmm. So there's I guess, like, the beauty and anonymity in that sense, where you have a lot more creative freedom. You can sample whatever you want in however way you want to do it. But it definitely does like kind of linger in the back of your mind, where you hear like skits from Primo, where he said people were coming after me because I was like using someone's vocals in a cut, and that's just like that was just other rappers too. It's like rapper labels were coming after him. So I can't even imagine what it's like if you're sampling like rock bands or jazz or whatever the case is. So I think it doesn't apply to the same extent for us. At least that's the way I feel when I put out stuff or I make beats.
Yeah.
But that thought always is in the back of your head.
Yeah.
But we also don't get to pick what blows up.
Yeah.
And in the event, like, you know, something blows up from Lo-Fi and it's becomes our biggest record that we're getting major dollars from, when that door, you know, not like somebody knocks on that door, we're pretty helpless. So that is something like I have thought about. But again, it's part of the game. So if it was to happen, I don't think I'm going to cry about it. I know the risks in it.
And that's always the case. As soon as it blows up, that's the only time they come knocking.
But the thing is, you know, we're working hard at trying to get other opportunities going. So we'll have other things in the works. So this is not the only thing that we're kind of holding on to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And usually by the time you get to that point, depending on who you're dealing with too, with the sampling agencies, you've kind of made some lump sum of money that you're able to kind of give back. But it is a thought that kind of goes back and forth a lot.
Yeah, and does it ever make you feel uneasy when you put something out?
Yeah, but also like I'm just at a point like I don't care. I just want to put it out, and it's kind of like back to the whole sampling thing, man. I just feel like people are just holding on to things. So what I like about the silver lining and the whole DeLa thing is, it's as much as people hate all the new stuff, it's really tightened up the business. And, you know, with likes of Frank Dukes, these guys are now creating sounds for you to purchase for like $30, sample, and it says at the bottom, this will be cleared.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about royalty free or there's a small percentage, but it gives you the assurance that we won't be the roadblock for you, because they're also looking at it that, hey, if you purchase this for $40 and your song ends up winning a Grammy, I win a Grammy because they're credited on it as well. Yeah. So I feel like business wise, we're really killing it. And I think, you know, the DeLa is a lesson for everyone. It is a lesson for everyone. And sometimes I'm hoping it works out, but like sometimes it doesn't. And that's the lesson. I hope it resonates with everyone, that you really got to watch everything.
Yeah. A part of me actually feels like it will work out because of the amount of attention this has been getting. I think Warner Brothers eventually will do the right thing. Hopefully, like I think they will, because we've seen situations like this happen in the past. Like, you know, I think about who was it? Was it like Saigon when he was playing The Greatest Story Never Told? Like he just was in this constant label battle where Atlantic would just not let him put it out, and eventually they were like, "Fuck it, take the album, go put it out." Like,
yeah, but the sad thing about that is really exhausting him as an artist and his lifespan. And when it came out, nobody cared. He really missed that window because he was just out of like a couple of years out of prison. Yeah, he had those big mixtapes.
And this will be different. This will be different because of just their storied catalog.
It is though, but it kind of sucks with the 30-year mark, man. You know what I mean? Like that 30-year really sucks. They can't do the big tours. Like you have 10-year anniversaries that are so big now, right? With So Far Gone, and these guys should have had something, but there's that whole Prince Paul stuff too, right? So. I don't know. Yeah.
Noyz, any final thoughts on this?
I think it just kind of goes to the fact that even within the music industry, the least valued person or the person who gets paid last is the actual artist that's creating the stuff. And I think it speaks to, in a lot of ways, the way how the industry works against the artist's best interest. And even back then, you know, no one could have envisioned streaming, but a product from back then that was acceptable is now kind of being held to a different standard, and it's damaging the artist's ability to kind of profit off it and capitalize upon it. So, yeah, man, it's a shady game, just as shady as it's always been. This is just an updated version of that.
Yeah, industry rule.
4,080.
But yo, just know, man. Like, if you want to play the game, these are the things that come with the game. So. You know, you got to adapt to it and just keep moving, man. You should be thinking outside the box all the time at the next thing in the event something folds.
So just one last thing, because you guys took a really unique release strategy for your album. How important was it for you to have control over that?
Which part?
Just like for Lo-Fi, the way you guys rolled it out, like the way you put the album up for sale, and even just only had the singles available on streaming. Like, how important was it for you to sort of dictate how you were putting this out?
I don't know. I'll let you take it. From my end, I just wanted to slow down the digestion process.
Yeah.
Because we had just put it out. I think people would just stream it one time, be like, "Hey, awesome job, guys!"
And then that's a negative of the streaming industry.
So with us, like, you know, there's that one aspect, like, you can support us so we can go do this. You know, we don't have resources at our disposal that we can just come out with another lo-fi.
Yeah.
And I don't even know when the next project's going to come, right? So we have one aspect where you can support us and we'll continue to do this. The other one is we'll work at our time and put these songs out slowly with visuals, and we'll load them onto streaming sites.
Sick.
Yeah, so it's like the album is there. If people need to get it, there is a way to get the entire thing as a package. But with streaming, again, you know, we made an intentional choice to sell it in order to get money to put back into the music for shows, for merch, for future projects. Because I think as an indie artist, again, it's very difficult to sustain this, right? So we wanted to have a little bit of a way to sustain it in a more steady way. And then with streaming, like Dusty was saying, you put out an album on streaming, 2 days later everyone's consumed it and they're ready to move on to the next thing. But if you kind of, you know, with visuals, like you're saying, after a couple of weeks, after a couple of months, you slowly introduce one at a time, you can have the album thing and the single thing at the same time. Because a lot of people are like, as an artist, either focus on albums or focus on singles. But I feel like we're trying to buck the trend and give you both at the same time.
I've noticed just with the streaming industry, and even being a big music fan, I like if an album's more than 20 songs, I probably don't listen to it. Like I feel like I've been severely given ADD when it comes to albums. That if an album's 9 songs, I get excited. When I see the 20-track Migos albums, I'm either waiting for the songs that have.
I understand what they're doing, and
it's the only way to get revenue.
Yeah, in the environment that we're in right now, it makes sense. But I don't know, man. I don't think everyone's an album artist.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? With us, it's an experience that we want to give. It's not like a one hit. So I'd rather just make like the whole proper meal and serve it one time rather than just like samplers.
Nice. I just want to close off the show with a one final topic, and this is actually nothing to do with anything that's going on in the news or anything that's relevant. It's really around a concept or that's, you know, sort of followed me around in my career when it comes to some of the stuff I've done in brand marketing as well as sort of the entertainment world. And you know, I wanted to get both of your thoughts on it, specifically when it comes to the work you put into LOFI GLORY. And this all started actually last week. You know, I started a new job a few weeks ago, and I was actually in my VP's office. And she had posted on a wall, I think as just a conversation piece, the phrase, "done is better than perfect." And it made me think about just the constant battle we face when it comes to creating just the battle between perfection and completion. There's so many times where you feel that you need to perfect something before putting it out. But then there's that pressure of wanting to complete it because you feel if you continually focus on perfection, it's going to prolong and you're going to miss the window of opportunity. So I want to get both of your perspectives on this. And Dusty, maybe we'll begin with you because you're like definitely a perfectionist in my eyes when it comes to a lot of stuff that you do.
Not, man. I don't look for perfection. Like I personally, I know it looks like that, but it's all fake. I look for completion, man.
No, but
I just know when something is complete. I don't know if it's perfect.
Yeah.
Right. That's very subjective. You can, you can look at something and be like, yo, that looks perfect to me. But to me, like, I have to complete it because I'm already working on the next 4 or 5 things in my head. And I have to get to those ideas.
But it's not even just me calling you a perfectionist. I think a lot of it also comes from the way you do the work that you do because you're very detailed oriented, which is a sign of a perfectionist when you think about the grand scheme of things and how they're able to deliver work. Like I've seen... You know, I remember even just if we want to put the music example, like there's so many times just during the mixtape era where you had rappers that would consistently just rap on the brand new tracks of the month because they just wanted to churn out product. Yeah. And sometimes those freestyles would just be shit. Like no one would ever listen to them. You know, they were good for like the 10 minutes that you heard it. But then after that, you would just, throw it away. But then you have artists that really put their all into albums, take breaks that, are sometimes considered unreasonable, but when they actually take the breaks, the product actually sounds amazing. And you can tell that this person sat with this work for a very long time because they wanted to make sure that when they put it out, that it was at a point that they wanted to be at. You guys started working on Lo-Fi Glory about 2015?
Yeah.
Early 2015. So it's 2019 now, and I think the last 4 years definitely can attest to just the amount of hard work that goes into putting together a project. But overall, what is your thoughts on Done is Better Than Perfect?
For me, like I'm big on vision, so it's mostly like I'm trying to complete my vision. It's not that I'm looking for perfection. It's just, I don't know, it changes from day to day. So as long as I can finish and have it looking, visually, and just sounding like how I want it to, I think I'm good. But sometimes it just takes time because I'm looking for the right resources.
Yeah.
So I don't think that ties into perfection. And sometimes you just have to wait, man, because I think like when you're working on something like most creatives do, you're just too close to it that you forget to kind of take a step back and look at the entire picture, and you figure out that, I've been working on the same side of the canvas for the past 3 weeks. I still have the other 2/3 of it that I need to move forward to. So I don't know, man. It is a struggle. Like you do go with it back and forth, but I think with this project, like we were just.
Is this project perfect?
No, but this project is exactly what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, maybe a couple years from now, depending on what's my perspective then. But right now, it's exactly what it needs to be, sound wise and visually.
Noyz, is anything ever perfect?
I don't know, man.
Noyz is perfect.
I've written verses where I'm just kind of like everything fits the way it needs to fit, like the flow, the pocket, the emotion, like everything fits the way it needs to. But I don't know if I could consider it perfect, because again, perfection is subjective. I don't think there's no consensus that everyone will agree that is perfect across the board. So I think it varies from person to person. And I feel like I definitely agree with that. Sometimes, done is better than perfect, because I've had points like that, especially working on this album where I'd be working on certain verses or certain choruses or songs or something where I'm just like constantly rewriting over and over again. Mm-hmm. And I think I hit that wall with like every song on this album at some point where I was just like stressing out over like 2 lines. I'm like, okay, how do I say this in a different way? How do I say this in a better way? Or I take a break, come back a week later, throw the whole thing out in the garbage, right? You kind of run into those same circles, hit those same walls as a creative. But I think by kind of chasing that picture of perfect, you do kind of run into this procrastination in a sense too, because you're like, I can always do better. I just need to sit with it longer. I need to think on it longer. And then in pursuit of this perfection, nothing is getting done.
So I think we were more so looking for satisfaction than perfection.
Yeah.
Because there were times that, I forgot who I was talking to, but someone said like, I could really tell you guys took your time with like cowbell and this and that, and I'm like, I hate to break it to you, but like that's probably the fastest record.
That was the fastest record.
It's literally the fastest record we made, and it felt right.
Yeah.
It just felt right. We had a really dope.
Yeah.
The other thing is like, it's not that the songs take long. The right conversations take long. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we have a conversation and it lingers for weeks, months, and then that transpires into a song. So that one took super fast, and it just felt right, like, from the start.
That's always an interesting one, where when you have perfection in mind, or satisfaction in this instance, and then you work on a song like Cowbell where the vibe just right and it just works, and then there's other songs, that you work on, you're like, you're spending days and months trying to perfect it, and then like Cowbell is the one, as an example, is the one that people are like, man, it looks like you really, took your time with this one and put it together. How do, as a creative, how does that make you feel when it comes to the work that probably didn't take the longest is the one that gets noticed versus, and it's just for argument's sake, versus something that, maybe got missed, but no one really understood just how much work actually went into it?
again, something that comes with the game, man. Yeah. There's certain things that you'll know that, you know, nobody else will pick up on. Like I remember when me and Wong used to paint canvases, and like, you know, for clients, I'll let it out now, but we used to paint something a little.
Just tell us, man. Tell us.
Like, okay, we'll paint something like this. Like we paint a house for someone, but we thought, okay, we have to add a little element that's only between us, like a joke. You know what I mean? So only we'll know, and if somebody figures out, that'll be a great Easter egg for them. So when we painted a house, we put a crowbar tucked under the mattress. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, but it has nothing to do with what the client asked for, but it's just those little things. And I don't think anyone noticed it. You know what I mean? But a lot of like thought and detail went into that hey, even though we're painting this amazing picture, there's all these intricate details that we're putting into, like, you know, something in the house, something near the bushes or whatever. It never got noticed, but it just, I don't know. Again, that's like a self-satisfaction thing, man. And I think it's different from like artist to artist.
Yeah, I definitely think it's like you said, once you're chasing a feeling, really, when you're creating art. Mm-hmm. And I think once you get that, that's when you know it's done. Other times, if you're chasing perfection, then that's what I feel like you're getting too bogged down in, like, the technical side of things, where it's like, this flow could have, like, 5 more syllables that rhyme within it, or I could have, like, 2 more punchlines in it. Like, you start to detach from the emotion of it and the feeling of it, and you get too bogged down in, like, the technicality aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when I feel like it's the best when you find that marriage between the two. Yeah. And when you just get too caught up on like chasing perfection, then especially when you're doing it to the detriment of the actual creative process, then I feel like that's when it's definitely time to take a step back and kind of reevaluate why you're doing it in the first place.
Working in a tandem, was there ever a point, and now that the project's done, you guys can talk about this, was there ever a point where one of you felt like this is done while the other person felt like it wasn't? And it doesn't have to be the entire project. Me. Yeah. Which is why you're the perfectionist, man.
No, it's not a perfectionist. I don't. Yeah, go ahead, man.
No, okay. So we clearly answered that.
I know, but I think he's changed. He's changed because I think he's seen the process of, like, now we know, like, how it is to produce a record. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, before it's like, yo, this sounds hot. I think we can put it out. And it's like, no. Like, we have to. I'm seeing the vision of how it's supposed to look at the end, which in most cases have worked out.
but that's always the constant battle when you work in a team is everyone sort of has their own standard that they want to hit.
And like, that's why, especially working in a group, whether it's 2 people, 3, 4, 5, however many people it is communication is so important. You have to make sure, like, if I'm saying, yo, let's put it out, and he's saying no, I want to know why he's saying no, right? There has to be some sort of justification to help me understand and, you know, kind of meet him where he's at. Or if I'm saying, you know, that's like, there's got to be some way for me to understand why he feels like a certain direction is the right way to go. And definitely communication is the most important thing, not even just in music, just any sort of venture that you're trying to pursue that is not just you as kind of like a one-man show. Yeah. Definitely that communication is so important. Otherwise, things get lost and you can start to make assumptions as far as like why things aren't getting done. I'm just like, because there was a point where I'm like,
I know he was pissed.
I was pissed for a long time, right?
But like, you know, I would think about that too, because I'm like, why is he mad at me but not mad at everyone else that fucking screws him over?
I feel like we're both mad at the both.
But I think, like, I don't know if you noticed it, but I feel like at a certain point last year, I just kind of started letting go, because it's like I'm responsible for these things and he's responsible for this. As long as he's happy with that, I have to move on, because we do need traction on this, right? And it's not just us that's working on this. There is like other parts on it, whether we're working with the visual guys, the engineer, you know. So I think like we did reach like a sweet spot where we were just really thoroughly satisfied with stuff. And there's been times where, you know, he had an idea and felt like, okay, I think we can push this even more. Whereas I was happy with just 2 verses or something. All right?
Yeah. No, because it's interesting, because, you know, I've worked in many different groups, you know, putting on events or working on, you know, different business related things, and it's always great to see different perspectives as to what completion looks like. There's some people that just have a obsession just putting stuff out, just like get it out the door, like don't even think about it. Then there's some people that want to take their time, and then the median that you try to find is that balance of, okay, well, how can we produce something that's of the highest quality but in the fastest way possible? And I think that's the struggle that a lot of people find when working in groups, is finding that balance.
I don't mind like putting a lot of stuff out, but I feel like I have to see, like any artist that puts that kind of stuff out, I have to see progress, because not everything needs to be shared.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. How many songs do we have that are not out?
Yeah.
We have a lot. We have a lot of ideas, a lot of beats, but I don't feel, or we don't feel, they need to be out right now.
Yeah.
Right? And some of them are just not even to, close to the caliber of some of the records on here. You know what I mean? So, I don't know, man. It just depends.
Was there songs that didn't make the album?
There were
one or two.
Yeah. And was that because it just didn't fit?
I think we outgrew them.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I think the biggest battle I find, like being like an artist or creator, is not creating. It's picking the right things to put out. You can make the best 5 songs, whatever, but maybe only one will connect. And who knows? Maybe with this album we picked 9 of the completely opposite records instead of the ones we should have put out. But that's the fun part of it, man. And I feel like that's an art too.
Yeah.
Being able to select the right work to put out.
Yeah. What's just out of curiosity, what's an album that's out that you think is perfect?
Right now?
Any album.
Any album?
Yeah. Favorite album of all time that you think, you know what, this is a perfect album because of everything that it encompasses, everything that it was able to do for even the industry, just in general. Like, what was an album that you're like, you know what, this was like a solid piece of work where everything's flawless?
It's too many.
One of my favorite albums.
Noyz always has an answer for stuff like this.
I think I know this one too.
Yeah, Aquemini by Outkast.
I thought you were going to say Sons of Man, Wu-Tang. Killer Army.
I would say Gravediggers.
That's a good album too, man. Legendary cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aquemini, Outkast.
I was going to say that too.
Yeah.
I have bad memories attached to that, but...
Why?
Because we were painting the Norseman pool, and it was a 1-week job, I think, during Christmas time.
Yeah.
So it's these massive, I don't know if that was like an Olympic-sized pool, but I had one like the long walls, right? So I was basically painting for 7 days straight, 14 hours, and I'm on ladders, right? Because we're painting up to like 10 feet tall. And this is back in, you're playing CDs, and you can only put one CD in a CD player. So this album just keeps looping. And then, the art of storytelling, every time it would come on, till this day, when I hear it, it sounds like water to me because I'm on the ladder, I'm looking back, and it's reflecting in the water. Yeah. And I just got sick. I would feel sick, and I'd throw up with, just with the paint fumes in the water. So I love that album, but like, I hear that song and I just feel like hurling, man.
So it's not perfect for you.
But I still like the album. That is a perfect album. I'll probably pick Illmatic is too easy.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
And also, I said perfect, not classic.
Perfect, perfect.
Because an album can be perfect, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like a classic. Like I'm talking about like a composition that was well put together. Because I don't think, again, maybe that's a debate within itself. But if it's a perfect album, is it automatically a classic? I don't know.
That's subjective, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the Blueprint.
That's where my head was going to.
Yeah.
Just what
the Blueprint for me is.
I think the Blueprint's the best of Jay-Z. Just in regards to what he is as an artist. Like, there's a song that encompasses like every single element of who Jay-Z is. Yeah. Which is why I think if someone was like, oh, I don't know Jay-Z, I don't know much. This is nobody. But
at one point, I'll tell you a funny thing. At one point, I would have picked Nas I Am as a perfect album. But here's the thing. When we're talking... see, odd pick, right? So when we're talking about going back to the conversation of just putting stuff out, I like seeing when artists make mistakes too, because most of the time people just be like, that's a crap album, we're not listening to that. But I like the mistakes that artists make because I find a lot of inspiration in it. Yeah, I see what they're trying to do and where you can take it. Yeah. And I actually end up picking a lot more from it. Like Yeezus, I feel like didn't connect a lot, but personally to me, Yeezus is a classic.
Oh, I love Yeezus.
It's a perfect album to me because from a soundscape, he's really pushing the boundary, and you can just there's a lot for me to always go back and get inspired and take back. So I do like when people just put stuff out that's done and it doesn't connect, because it does. That's where I get a lot of my stuff from, man.
Yeah, I also, again, a lot of, when I think about Lo-Fi Glory, I think another album that really kind of resonates similar in nature is probably Common's B. Because of just the consistency of the sounds. Yeah, that's a perfect album.
That's a winter album.
Yeah, and it's just, for me, it's a point in time. Like, you can really put yourself in Common's shoes, whether he's on the corner or hanging out in Chicago. Similar to when I hear Lo-Fi Glory, like, you really put yourself into what Noyz is talking about, and just the beats accompany that as well. And like that, to me, like, I think selfishly that's a classic album as well. But I think that's a perfect album because it's like the best of the producer and it's the best of the artist, and even the sounds on that, like, you're getting Kanye with just the drum patterns, but you're also getting the sampling. You're also getting some of the neo-soul stuff that Common's been known for his entire career. Like, I think it's another well-rounded project.
I think there's a lot to explore on it, man. I think like the feedback's been amazing, and again, like, we can't do anything about just how people generally digest information and songs now. So I see that people have gone through it multiple times that first week, but I'm hoping this is something that they connect back with this week, next week, and maybe even a couple months from now. Yeah, man, because I'm still from that time where, I'll pull an album and I'm just like, right now I'm just listening to Volume 1. That's it, Jay-Z's Volume 1, the whole week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of great songs on it, even though that's not the album that...
Imaginary Player, man.
Yeah. Dude, that's my record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that album... Like, speaking of perfect songs, that's a perfect song. And I don't think a lot of people know that record or even bring it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why I was watching the B-sides.
Yeah.
Because I've never seen him perform that until that one, so...
So, I guess the last question to kind of close this up is if you can share advice to anybody who is maybe too caught up in this idea of putting out perfection versus actually putting out quality work and being able to get noticed, like, what advice would you give them based on what you've learned by putting this project together?
Actually, where do you stand now?
Yeah,
I feel like whatever we were feeling and going through last year is completely different, at least from me, since the album came out.
Actually, to that point, just sorry to divert a little bit. The 4 years that took you guys to put this together, was there any time within that? Because obviously things changed. Like, Noyz, you got married. Dusty, you've been through some changes as well. I'm just trying to think.
Like, what have you done in life?
Noyz used to beat me.
Oh my
Scandal
God.
coming.
Yeah, we are live streaming. Chill.
No, but you're just gonna laugh at that? Oh my God! Exclusive.
Shout outs to our audience of one, Nubby here, just chilling on the couch. Like, in that 4 years, was there ever any time where you felt that, man, we've been working on these songs for a while, this doesn't really fit where we're at right now? Because 4 years is a long time, considering what the average, like, you have people like Drake that put out an album every year, and it honestly, just becomes like, redundant.
At the time, like, I think timing-wise, it kind of worked in our favor, because 2 years ago, you know what the sound was, and everybody was on it. Even guys that were making, they were really swinging away from their natural sound and making all this trap stuff. When I heard, like, say, 444, it was another, I would say, perfect classic album. That made me super happy, because right now, everybody in the world is listening to an album which is straight, like, coming from where we come from. Straight samples, raw loops, weird, beat patterns and stuff. So that made me happy that, okay, now if you guys can...
Even Daytona, Pusha T.
Right. Thing. So if you guys can listen to this, and this is commercial music, and you guys love it and stuff, I want to see the same energy when my album comes out. Because I also didn't, make the album as, like, the super backpack or whatever. We really went on just layers with this album, how we wanted to do just the songwriting, so... And I saw that kind of shift happening, which is, I was telling you, it's so funny to see this whole, the 2 Chainz marketing. you know, because he's really pushing the whole agenda of, you know, he's selling like that crate, right, for the 45s, and you play basketball with it. And he's like, oh, I put in a couple sample records now because his next album is entirely produced by Static Selecta. And they had a little thing on Twitter last year where Static said, I'm producing this album, and someone said, hey, I can't wait till you and 2 Chainz do this boom bap album. And they kind of went off on the fans saying that, yo, how come you don't say this when Kendrick puts out a record? Yeah, we're making the exact same music as him. Why are we considered boom bap and he's considered whatever, you know, this new era stuff? So I felt great, man, with the last couple of albums kind of coming out. So I feel like our timing is good too.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that 2 Chainz album because track number 2, Threat to Society, is like Wonder Beat. Like that's.
And he's talking about Jay, he had to go get Ninth Wonder and stuff. But it's just funny because he's conditioning his audience for his next project. Because had that come out, they'd be like, what are you doing? Like, where's the club record? So I feel like, yo, we fit well, man. Our project, like, speaks for itself. Yeah.
Noyz.
Yo.
Any thoughts?
I forgot what the question was.
Actually, what advice would you give to someone who's chasing perfection when it comes to their work?
I don't know. I feel like you're probably going to get lost.
Yeah.
To be honest. I think it's with any song, with any album, it's like, what is your intention going into it? And did you say everything you needed to say? Did you emotionally hit every feeling that you needed to hit? And if you can say yes to that, then I think you're good to go with it. Yeah. Because you can always write a better verse, you can always make a better beat. But again, if chasing that is to the detriment of the actual creation of the project, then again, go back to square one. Ask yourself what your intention was when you started.
Do you feel like it's made you smarter as an artist now when you're working on completing stuff or working on new stuff?
I think so, because like I've been writing quite a bit since the album's come out. Yeah, and I feel like there was a point in time, probably early on when we were making the record and when we were working on the 21 gram stuff, where I was like so hypercritical of like every line I would write to the point that nothing was getting done. And now when I'm writing stuff, it's like, okay, this might not be my best verse, but I'll still write it because what's the harm in actually writing it, right? Just because you create something doesn't mean it has to come out and be shared with the rest of the world. And I think there's this tweet that I read by a writer. He said that not everything you write is going to be your best work. Yeah. Right? And the faster you can realize that, the faster you'll be able to create your best work. Because by getting through those less than stellar pieces, you have to get through that to get to find that piece that you feel that you're really going to connect with.
It was funny. I was thinking of you when I heard Imaginary Players today. Yeah. Because how Jay is on Reasonable Doubt, it's very like performing top level and stuff, like whatever he wanted to do personally. And I feel like everything that he learned during that first run, he really smartened up on the second one, because the Imaginary Player is still like written really well, but you listen to his flow compared to the other stuff, it's super slowed down. So I was thinking of the first, and then I was thinking of these couple new voice notes you sent me, because even like the Vice one, you've kind of like slowed down on that. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because I think like at one point, maybe, do you feel like it was too easy for you to do that triple time flow? Yeah. I think like he was so comfortable in it, like it still like blows our mind, but it was like,
I gotta show you this new voice note. I do the
same thing. Yo, send me some of these voice notes, man. That's funny. Do you guys have any other thoughts on anything before we shut this one down and play some music?
No, man. Shout out to you, Nav. Shout out to New Theory. Thanks for having us on, man. This has been fun. We'd love to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, thanks, guys, for opening up, talking about some controversial shit.
Yeah, man. Congrats on your new venture, man. This is amazing.
Thanks, man. Thanks. And, this is fun. It's fun to just get friends together and just talk about what's going on. I think it's important.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And get that LOFI Glory, man. At NoyzHipHop.com.
Yeah, we should have like the hiphopgame.com. It's like NoyzHipHop.com.
The world's #1 hip hop website.
Yeah, hey, yo, take that branding.
People asking me to like, when are we gonna come to their city? Yo, buy the album, man. Buy the album. Tell your friends. And, hopefully that's going to help us figure out where we're trying to take this tour this year. And, we'll definitely pop up in your city.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say is, continue to support local artists and continue to buy their music. You're not just putting money in their pockets. You're really finding ways to fuel their dreams and be able to go on tours and create merch and create more music. So, all the best to you guys, man. Like, I know you guys worked really hard on this project. I'm very happy that you guys were able to come on the show to talk about some stuff. And, I wanted to thank you, everyone who tuned in, whether it be during this live stream or on iTunes. If you want to connect with New Theory Radio, it's at New Theory Radio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Where can they connect with the both of you guys if you guys want people to reach out to you? Obviously, NoyzHipHop.com is everything they can buy, LOFI GLORY, but what about social media? Want to plug your accounts?
Just Dusty Loops for
everything.
Yeah, Instagram, Twitter, website, dustyloops.ca.
Sweet. What about you, Noyz?
Yeah, I'm on everything. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Everything is Noyz Hip Hop. Website, noyzhiphop.com. LOFI GLORY is available there. The music video shot by Revive Films is up there as well.
Yeah, shout out to Revive Films. Amazing job. The director's cut just came out. That's pretty sick.
Vibe Don't Lie coming next.
Oh, snap. Drop the hint. And yes, if you want to connect with me, I don't have consistent social media handles like these two. It's at Nanwa on Twitter and at Nav Nanwa on Instagram. Thank you so much for tuning in. You will hear all of us next time. Peace.